What's going on, guys? Austin Zaback here with another YouTube video, and in today's video we're going to be talking about the 3 things that you need to know before flipping a house. Okay, so I'm clearly standing out here in front of one of my flip projects, and they're actually painting it right now, and I'm going to be sharing with you again in the video the top things that you need to take into consideration before ever flipping a house. Because at the end of the day, there's a ton of things that people do wrong. I see it all the time, right? Where people go, they try to get into real estate and they do it entirely wrong. So I'm out here at a property, like I said, right behind me, and we're actually running a little bit behind schedule, okay? So that's kind of what I'm gonna dive into as point number 1 that you wanna definitely take into consideration before you ever even think about flipping. So typically, right, when you're flipping a house, I'm not gonna hold on to the property behind me for a very long period of time, right? And if I do, what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna refinance the property, okay? So we'll break all of that down. Now, you can go buy a flip and you can get conventional financing for it, but it is gonna be a little bit more difficult, right? Because it's gonna typically have to appraise. And if it doesn't appraise at the value, then it will be hard to get a conventional loan. Another reason that might make it hard to get a conventional or definitely an FHA or a VA loan is if the property needs a lot of repairs, right? Typically, if the roof is falling in, if there's a lot of repairs that are needed, right, like foundation problems, it needs to be painted, the whole thing needs to be gutted, then a lot of times, it's not gonna qualify for one of the conventional programs that exist for like first-time home buyers, which is why you have to get a little bit more creative, right? And you probably don't have like a couple of $100,000 in cash just laying around, which is why I would suggest that you make sure that you can build enough room in your margin to be able to afford to pay that high interest loan for a couple of short months. All right, at the end of the day, that is the biggest tip, right? Figuring your financing out, because I talk about a lot of different things on my YouTube channel, which you would know, by the way, if you've already, of course, smashed the like button for the YouTube algorithm and subscribe down below, right? But I talk about how to find deals, all sorts of different stuff, but at the end of the day, what does it do to find a great deal and you can't afford it, right? You don't have the financing lined up to actually buy the property. So that is why I always recommend you get that lined up first, right? Go out, find a hard money lender, find a private money lender, right? It can be whoever, but you've got to figure that out now, right? Figure out if the house you're going to be able to buy is going to be able to be approved for conventional or FHA or VA or whatever program is out there that you want to eventually finance it with. And again, with the harder private money, if you decide to keep it as a rental property, you decide to keep it as, your primary residence, right? You can always refinance out of that harder private money loan into a conventional loan. So that is the first thing, okay, that you gotta do if you wanna flip a house. Now let's go ahead and dive in to the second thing you gotta do. The next thing you need to know before flipping a house is to follow the 70% rule. Now the 70% rule essentially just states that you never wanna pay over 70% of the ARV. And the ARV stands for the after repaired value. So essentially you always wanna look at any given property and you want to figure out what will the house be worth when it is all fixed up, said, and done. And once the house is 100% fixed up, said, and done, that will determine your ARV. So essentially what I'm saying is you always want to make sure that you never pay more than 70% of that value. So if a property is worth $100,000 when it's all fixed up and done, you don't want to pay anything more than $70,000. But what a lot of people forget to take into consideration is the repair costs, the holding costs, the realtor costs, and all of that. Now you can choose to do the math however you want, but what I would recommend that you do is you take that 70% number and then you minus the repair costs. Now, depending on the repair cost, sometimes you can build that into the actual 70%. So sometimes that 30% gap is enough to actually include the repair costs in, and sometimes it isn't. It just depends on how you want to work the equation. And again, this is going to vary state by state. It's going to vary property by property. So for example, the house that we were just at a little while ago, it will be worth about $360,000 when it's 100% fixed up, said and done. And we paid $267,000 for that particular property. We actually paid about 74% when you look at the numbers, but it is in such a good location and it doesn't need a lot of repair costs that it ended up working out. And not only that, that particular property, we're gonna keep it as a rental property, so we were able to pay about 4 or 5% more than we would normally pay. But again, if we were fixing that property up and putting it back on the market as a fix and flip property, we would have probably wanted to pay a little bit less. Again, going back to the 70% rule. This is a rule that you definitely want to follow if you're brand new to buying a fixer-upper. The last thing you want to do is overpay for a property. My mentor told me a long time ago, he said, Austin, you make money in the buy. And you know what he was talking about is he's like, look, if you don't buy it right, then there's no number you can sell it for to make a profit. So you're not making money when you sell a property. You're making money when you buy the property, and if you're not buying it right and there's no profit, aka no meat on the bones, then you're not going to make any money. So just make sure that you don't make a bad investment when you go to buy a piece of real estate, and make sure you really run your numbers and you know that you're not overpaying for a property. The last thing that you got to do before flipping a house right away is to run all of the numbers again. Now you're probably like, Austin, I've ran the numbers 100 times. You know, I want to just go ahead and buy the house. I want to just jump into it head first. But I promise you, as we were just talking, right, the numbers need to be ran multiple different times. I've seen so many people that go out and they flip a property, and for whatever reason, they missed something, right? They overcalculated or they undercalculated. Maybe they didn't calculate at all a particular cost, a particular expense that is associated with flipping the property, and they end up going backwards. They end up losing a ton of money, and the last thing that I want you to do is to lose a ton of money. So look, what I would highly recommend is that you just go back and you run the numbers again. And remember, you're looking for a lot of different things, but what you're in particular looking for is you're looking for repair costs, you're looking for holding costs, you're looking for realtor costs, you're looking for HOA costs, you're looking for all of these different things when you're looking at a property. A lot of people, if anything, they just run the repair costs and they forget about the HOA, they forget about the taxes, they forget about all of the other things associated with flipping a property. I mean, on average, you're gonna have to pay a real estate agent or a real estate brokerage about 6% to sell the property. And that's just on the sell side of things. That isn't even on the buy. On the buy, again, the seller typically covers all realtor costs. So when you're buying the property, you're not having to pay the realtor costs, but you are gonna have to pay for closing costs, right? You're gonna have to pay for different things up front. So I just encourage you to go back again before you go ahead and actually buy the property and rerun the numbers, right? Really break everything down. Look at the after repair value. Make sure that that is in fact going to be the value when it is all fixed up, said and done, and then go ahead and just break down every single number until you get to your final number. And I would even calculate your profit. What do you want to make in profit when you go to actually flip the property? And again, I would calculate it from a worst case scenario standpoint. I see a lot of people that look at it from the best case scenario, and you really want to look at it from the worst case scenario, right? When I look at a property and I think, okay, this is going to take 3 months to finish, I'm going to go ahead and add another month, another 2 months to that timeline, because it is never going to go as planned. Just like we talked about, okay, in the beginning of the video, right? It never goes as planned. You definitely want to take into consideration everything. You want to triple check, you want to double check, you want to just literally check as many times as you can before buying a property. And again, don't overanalyze it, okay? I see a lot of people that kind of cross this line where they overanalyze. I'm just saying to go ahead and double and triple check your numbers, but don't get to the point where you're overanalyzing to the point where you're paralyzed and you don't end up taking action and you never end up getting started, because the reality of it is that isn't any good either, right? You don't want to just sit on the sidelines your whole life and wind up, 40, 50, 60 years old having never gotten into real estate. Again, I encourage you just to run the numbers, right? To go ahead and just prepare to the best of your ability, but don't overanalyze, okay? So that pretty much wraps up in a nutshell my top 3 things that I would recommend that you do right away before flipping a house. Now again, it's kind of a crazy world we're living in, so go consult with people, right? Consult with a realtor, consult with an attorney, consult with a bunch of your own people. I'm not giving you legal advice or financial advice. I'm just telling you what I would do if I was going to flip another property. So there you have it, okay? Go ahead and like the video if you haven't already. I would really appreciate it. It would help me a ton with the YouTube algorithm, okay? Drop in the comment section below if you liked this style of video. I would greatly appreciate it. It would mean the world to me. And go ahead and follow my podcast channel. It's called The A&A Show. I'll link it down in the description below. Check that out, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.